Hello, everybody. I know it's the final talk of the DroidCon, so I do appreciate your efforts for coming today and for my talk. It's great seeing such many enthusiasts for code AOSP, no time to EOL. DroidCon been OK? Yeah? Yeah, that's what I like to see. Good job. Good job, speakers. Good job, organizers. It's been awesome so far. So, you, as you might see, yeah, no time to EOL. Might not be your app development territory. So for app developers, welcome. This will be an introductory talk. You'll be easy to follow today. And for AOSP developers, maybe some previous attendees who came to my last year's talk, this will be a new adventure, a new twist on the AOSP source code, and we'll learn more about no time to EOL. So, time to get started. As an agent Gatt, it is important for me to have the best Android device. These shades are pretty dark, so I'm going to take them off. Point made. So choosing the first step to my mission to get started is choosing a perfect Android companion. We'll discover what needs to be fulfilled, what are the requirements to having such a good device. That will be covered up next. Following the realization of end of life, sounds scary, basically death, in a different way, don't worry. No souls have been taken yet. Which gives us a perfect segue to custom ROMs and the open source project of custom ROMs. It cannot be custom ROMs if it's not open source. We'll figure that out later. It's a puzzle that might sound confusing right now. So much so far. Yep, we'll get through it. The mission takes place, of course, with custom ROMs, and we follow with installing the ROM, right? You can't just look at a custom ROM, enjoy everything about the custom ROM until it is flashed. So a whole new procedure. You won't be lost, don't worry. It'll be quite simple and quite fun at the same time. So following that, beneath the surface is really interesting. So we'll give a sneak peek at the source code analysis whilst looking ahead. So let's get started with our partner. It's 2017, some context. I am quite picky with my device. I am working in an agent role, so knowing that my Android device can fulfill its requirements of having stable, up-to-date software, sounds easy. The latest API levels, since I use internal apps which require the latest Android support. So we need to make sure that that's clear. Whilst having latest security patches, I can't have people sneaking into my encrypted messages for some agent texts and whatnot. So the security patches from Android to stop vulnerabilities from happening, very helpful. So it was a no-brainer to go with a Google Pixel 2 XL in 2017. It even gives me the liberty of having Android beta updates. Yeah, sounds cool. I can get my stuff ready for the next version. Sounds like a dream come true. So at $100, my budget with the MI6 seemed very reasonable. And it should last for a while now. Yeah, it did. So we started with API level 26 on Android 8.0 Oreo. And in the same year, Google released 8.1, which was another incrementation of the API level to 27. Android 9 with Pie. The next API levels, you know how it goes. We're counting up numbers. It's important to know that during these times, we had the latest API levels, so nothing crashed. Performance was stable. Yeah, I'm doing my work. And 10 and 11. So it's 2020, and 11 seems to be the last one on this chart here. But that means end of life? Yep. It's 2020, guys, and Google has halted updates for the Google Pixel 2 XL and the Pixel 2. Sounds a bit scary, does it? So looking back at my requirements, the newest API level, lost with Android 12. Pity. My apps won't work anymore. This is already a halt. I'm already in a situation where I do not want to be. Alongside the API support, drops the security patches. Android 11 doesn't need to be supported anymore. There's Android 12. There's Pixel 3 getting updates, Pixel 4 getting updates. You get the drill. I'm not getting any of those. Yep, and no feature drops, you know? I've been halted updates in December 2020, which means that I didn't even go through a full section of platform stability. Since Android 11 ends at around August, September, where it's fully stable, and I stopped at December, which means I'm missing out on new bug fixes, new smaller vulnerabilities, exploitation patches. So this is a problem. I require all of these requirements to be fulfilled. So what can I do? Buying a new phone? Not really. My balance doesn't agree. You know, the MI6 did not invest as much budget as they did in 2017. I only have 21 euro 37 cents. And I'm eyeing at the Pixel 7 Pro, which is around 800. Yeah, I need to go overtime, I think. But it also just doesn't make sense, does it? I have a flagship phone from 2017. It should be powerful enough to just increment its version updates. So even if I had the budget, I'd be contributing to e-waste. It's just another phone. Yeah, I need to fulfill my task with the latest version, and I cannot, so I just toss this away. Doesn't make sense. There must be another way, right? Yeah, why not? Custom ROMs. Custom ROMs are unofficial distributions of the Android operating system. And who makes them? Developers like us in the hobbyist community, not people from a company. We are free to do our own work to continue making unofficial versions of the Android operating system work on our phones. They are alternative flavors of the Android operating system, so not a Google flavor as such in this case, because you can have different skins, you can have different apps. You know the drill. We'll cover a bit of differences later on to see what options we have, especially with respect to the Pixel 2. But custom ROMs in general, they sound enticing. They're made by hobbyist developers. It's a team effort, an unofficial team effort like us, and everything is open. So if you want to take a look at anything, you can. And yeah, it sounds enticing, but it also sounds very complicated. There's a lot of things. I mentioned different flavors, different devices, many developers. So you might get confused, which is no problem, because help is always on the way. With many forums such as XDA, 4PDA, and even Telegram group chats, you can find catalogs of devices with different custom ROM flavors, custom kernels, guides, reviews, anything you can think of, you're covered, as long as you have an Android device, all right? So yeah, don't feel like it's too overwhelming. For newcomers, even for somebody who has never heard about Android custom ROMs, people like us, developers, can lead you in the right direction to get started, to choose your own flavor, to get started. And even later on, if you come across hiccups or like stops between your errors or whatnot, we can help you out. The group chats are quite helpful and active. Yeah, very active. Shameless plug for my chat. Yeah, if you want to join, you know where to find the link. So let's take a look at XDA, not my chat. That seems like a bit cluttered right now. So for the Pixel 2 XL, I simply just went on the website and looked up the Pixel 2 XL forums, and I went into the ROMs, kernels, recoveries, and other section, which interests me since that's where custom ROMs are. You can find ROMs like NinjaOS, Pixel Experience, Sierra Droid, Tequila OS. OK, yep. Sounds like a variety, even some flavor. Yeah. So yeah, we have 4 sections of custom ROMs. So which one should I go for? I'd say Lineage OS. It seems like the most easy to go to custom ROM because it's the most popular one, I'd say. With the latest API level on Lineage OS 20 means that I get to enjoy features on Android 13. Sounds right? That's one check done. Requirement is fulfilled. If it means it's up to date, it also has regular support. Security patches. Yeah. My device is secure. I can know that the latest patches for vulnerability and exploits are covered with the latest updates on a monthly basis, even on a weekly and a nightly basis. So, yep. With over 100 devices to support. So, yep, I have a Pixel 2 XL. You may have a different brand of phone. That is absolutely no problem. Even with official support and unofficial support, you can find something, especially with Lineage, that suits your needs. But it obviously isn't the only custom ROM to look at. We saw a few more before. So let's generalize a bit. Why custom ROMs? As I mentioned before, there are teams behind custom ROMs. So the commitment to it is quite dedicated, I would say. As I said before, this satisfies my niche case. So e-waste can be prevented. I don't need to buy a Pixel 7 Pro, even if I had the money for 800 euro. So I'm keeping to this device, which was a flagship, and I'm going to stick with it for future years to come. So future-proofing what is already good and the hardware which is already compatible with it. There are different flavors of custom ROMs, I said. So if Lineage OS isn't for you, if Pixel Experience isn't for you, if Sierra Droid isn't for you, they'll eventually either be one for you. You can make your own custom ROM with different looks and feels and applications which are pre-installed and optimization features. So yeah, you're not out of the equation over there. And when custom ROMs are typically built, they are made with a team effort. So you have people who are working on the base code, and you have, especially which concerns us with the Pixel 2 XL, are device maintainers. So if you have a device maintainer working for your device, all technical specifications will be in mind. So if I have speakers, camera, everything should be in working order, as it should, for a stable daily driver use. And security patches, yeah. Our requirements are full, and so should yours. Disclaimer. We are changing code from our device. We're delving deep in a territory where we are changing things on base level. So you have been warned. You have to be cautious when doing this type of procedure. Before I get started, it is noteworthy that instructions by each ROM developer is made clear, not just for decoration, but for your use case. So please take a look at it. It may be different according to your device brand or OEM. So make sure, please guys, make sure that you are following the right procedure, because it'll be worth it. Yeah, we can agree on that. And yeah, you do not want to know what happens if you go in the wrong direction, because some cases may lead to irreversible effects. So let's double check that. All right, that's clear. Let's start Mission AOSP. All right, so to get started Mission AOSP, we need to know what AOSP is, right? So that's the first thing we need to tackle. If we want to start modifying our devices, we need to learn about bootloaders. There is something we need to interact with in this procedure. So yeah, we need to know what it is and how to unlock it, and installing recovery images on it, because we need to change our operating system. It just makes logical sense to go that direction. And once we're ready, sideloading a custom ROM just seems like the right thing to do. And we're pretty much done, for which we have extra time to spare to analyze some of the code which goes behind the scenes. All right, AOSP. So AOSP stands for the Android Open Source Project. Cool. What does it mean? So Android as a platform. Main goals: distribute, establish, and expand. So by being open source, it is available on the web. It's made for free for developers like us to use. Again, not for decoration. They're made for use cases. That's what Android is meant to be doing. Even on a general market, it makes sense to make use of AOSP since that's the base code you're going to start modifying. So that's distribute, establish. AOSP has a group of repositories on android.googlesource.com, which you can visit there. And everything is up to date on the latest version, because that's where Android meets its updates first. To establish the Android environment and ecosystem from a part of repositories, which we will cover later. And expand. By being free, it just kind of makes sense. It's a large user base, many people and developers like you guys to make use of. So if you want to start with a platform, it's good to expand the Android OS by making it public and free. As you can see here, it's not quite a JIT, but platforms like AOSP make use of platforms like Gerrit, where you can collaborate with other developers, and if you have suggestions and patches to make, you can push your review, which will later be reviewed by people who are responsible for taking care of the Android source code to eventually either merge it, comment, and give you feedback, or if it's not suitable, just ditch it. But regardless, there's the opportunity, and we respect that point of the Android open source system. And yeah, obviously, you might be asking, OK, it's open. Isn't that a gate for vulnerabilities? It could be, and it could be not. You can see it in two ways. People like us can contribute. If we are good at security, we can give our patches to the AOSP source code for it to be merged. So that's a counterback. I think it balances out that we have many talented developers working on Android, even at a low level. Similarly, custom ROMs like Lineage OS have their own Gerrit platform. Now, OK, it's the same principle, different execution, since custom ROMs are on a way smaller level. So you have more priority when it comes to pushing your patches, sending your device to official if you want to become a device maintainer, and even fixing bugs in source code. So, OK, I have an issue with this device, a minor one, because of course we have platform stability. I'll just send this commit, which I found off of research and work, which can later be reviewed from other AOSP maintainers or Lineage OS maintainers, respectively. So you think you have a patch to make and a difference to make, then feel free. AOSP, Lineage OS, they all have the review platforms for your voice to be heard. OK, that's clear. We know that we have the reassurance of platforms, and they have our side for open source. Let's start getting into the very, very hot stuff. So bootloaders, they're on devices like my laptop, like my phone, like my watch. Everything has a bootloader. It's like a car. It gets you from point A to point B. Device boot up to operating system. Sounds simple enough, right? Yeah, not quite. It also has some security features. Of course, you can't just let anyone tamper with your device. You have a screen lock on your device, which encrypts your data. And you can't let somebody get through this feature with a bootloader. You can't just wipe your system or steal your data. So bootloaders are in control of this. They make sure that when you are using your device, you are the actual user of the device. And obviously, if you want to unlock your bootloader, which we'll do later on, you are the person who is making the choice to do this. So unauthorized data handling, our bootloader is locked right now, so no, not today. Whilst obviously we'll make use of accessing different partitions on our device later on by the bootloader, because we don't need to get into this operating system before we get back to the bootloader. Yeah, it's confusing. We'll just use this. It will be way simpler, and it will be way easier to understand. So yeah, we know what the bootloader is. But to make changes, we need, obviously, to get through this. We need to remove our system, so unlocking the bootloader is the way to go. All right, how to get to the bootloader first? I mean, you can't unlock it before you're in it. So, combination. Over here, I have a Pixel 2 XL. By holding volume down and power for around 10 seconds from shutdown, you'll get into the bootloader. You connect your phone to the device. Google makes use of platform tools. Some of you may know it. ADB people? Yeah, ADB people, you guys know. And not just ADB. First, we'll be using fast boot tools. So over here, to unlock your bootloader, first, you need to go into your developer options. To make sure it's you, you have to put your pattern in, you know. And the setting of OEM unlocking, after tapping the build number for 5 times, and the toast message telling you, you are now a developer. Which you may not be, but yeah, you are a developer according to that. You have to go to the options and do OEM unlocking, but that's only part of it. That allows you to unlock the bootloader. So combination, terminal, platform tools, fast boot, flashing unlock for Pixel 2 in this case, and your bootloader is unlocked. Sounds simple, right? Step 1. It's pretty simple. So next part, the recovery image. Now, you do have like a recovery image by default on your device, a stock recovery image. However, we'll be making use of the custom ROM's recovery image because it was made for the custom ROM. So we'll be installing Lineage OS recovery from the build we'll be installing. In this case, well, again, instructions matter here. So for my Pixel 2 XL, I'm flashing it to the boot partition. Then I go into the recovery partition, and it's there. Right? Apart from installing the ROM, the custom recovery will let us wipe the device, make changes, and even use ADB on a lower level. So yeah, sounds good. Let's wipe the old. Go to the option, format data, boom. Nothing affiliated. Yeah, if you're formatting data, back your data first. Right? You don't want to have your pictures gone like that. Yeah, so make sure you back up your data to transfer over. OK, you get a computer. Yep, pictures transferred. Good, we're good. All right, you wiped your data. We can finally sideload. So we have the previous recovery image that we've downloaded and installed. Now we have our main zip file, which is a flashable zip file. In this case, it could be like lineage 20, Taman, and the date, and official or unofficial or signed. So different variants of the build. It's a zip file. So point to that in your terminal, ADB sideload, zip.image, or .zip or .image. And yeah, go get a coffee. It will be like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It'll be OK. Come back. And yeah, you'll see this beautiful line here, which means that your total transfer has been successful. Yeah, I'll take my water. Well, you take your tea. Anyways, we've gone a reboot, and here we are. We're on Lineage OS. Simple as that, right? All right. Recall the requirements. New API level. Check. We're on Android 13. Makes sense. We have my agent apps are back. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I've been on Android 11 builds. Yeah. Now I'm on Android 13. Yeah. Count me back in the mission. The latest security patch, in this case, it's July. So July 2023 security patch has been merged and has been compiled from my device and published. And stability, yeah. I can go around my phone after this setup, do anything I want, and there's no hiccups. Actually, quite quicker than before, because platform stability has been achieved at this rate. And obviously, many developers have contributed to this device. So yeah, bugs shouldn't be the case here. No to those. Plus, we have some bonuses. Obviously, Lineage OS is quite open. It comes very bare bones. So say I don't want some specific app. Maybe I don't want Google Photos pre-installed on my phone. Yeah. You have the option not to have it as a system app or disable it or any of that crap. You just come with the stop image app, the stock apps, which makes you dictate what you can do with your device. Plus, you can give it a different look or feel. You know, even with some modules, with Magisk and whatnot, you can make your device feel different, do different tasks. So your device, fresh coating of paint, and yeah, you dictate what you do on your device. It's cool. It's cool. Slight beneath the surface teaser here is Pixel 2's code. Yep, this isn't code, it's just a tree. I'm just making it easy for you to read. Don't be scared. This isn't a coding session. As you can see, the Pixel 2's code primarily is made up of a device tree, a kernel, and a vendor. Vendor blobs, they're plural. So in this case, our Pixel 2 has a common tree. It's not your normal device and one repository. It's Taman, Wahoo, and Wolai. Funny names, yeah, Wahoo? Okay. Wahoo is basically the combination of Taman and Wolai. Since these devices are basically just smaller and bigger versions of each other, it makes sense to point to a directory where the config files are the same. So yeah, you don't need to point to here and have duplicate code. It just made sense from bring up from Google. So yeah, same goes with kernel. You don't have a separate kernel for the smaller device or the bigger device. It's just a kernel for Wahoo. However, for blobs, it makes sense because the device is made by different OEMs, and vendor blobs dictate the specifications and apps pre-built for the device. So say I have camera blobs. They dictate exactly how the camera behaves in the operating system, so I can't have those intertwined exactly. While the device tree, yeah, there are MK files, so make files, which tell you what HALs to build, what services are pre-included, and many more. And the kernel, finally, it's probably the most straying away from here. It's closer to Linux versions, so it works on the same principle as any device does with a Linux kernel. Brought up with drivers, many configs, and flags predetermined by default. All right, that's one section. Let's take a step back and see the whole picture. The Android source code, it's big. Yes, when you synchronize your source code with a manifest as shown by AOSP's code, it's quite big. I split them up in small sections. So the device source code makes this part of it. The build system dictates how the compiler works, where it needs to look at. So if I want to make a firmware, OK, I'll fetch this from here. OK, fetch this from here. And we'll put these all together so we have a flashable zip file. We have runtime, libcore, system. I don't need to bore you. I'd say that the biggest part of the Android source code is dictated from frameworks such base. That's where all the logic and beneath the surface happens in the Android operating system for common devices, not just for Pixel 2. Whilst having, obviously, packages which might concern more people if they want to include applications as a system app, you put your app in the packages directory so that it's pre-built by default and obviously shipped to the consumers or yourself. So if I want to have a different camera app, a different gallery, a different etc., I can make that happen without adding extra bloat. Yeah, and the hardware repository comes handy in our case because we're building on actual hardware. So if there's a Qualcomm repo, since this is a Snapdragon 835, it makes sense to have Qualcomm hardware blobs and repositories. In case of an emulator, probably less. It's OK. But obviously, we can get into that and spend the whole day for a whole nother mission. So yeah, I'm not going to keep you here till tonight, guys. It's going to be something you can even look up if you're just very curious to taking a sneak peek ahead. If you're venturing forth to the dangers of AOSP and EOL, you can do that. But let's recap. You know, we already did so much so far. We have a phone running a latest firmware. Let's recap. So, successful mission. Yeah, I can work now. I'm an agent. Back to my secret duties. I'm not going to tell you any of that. Just keeps it to myself. We have discovered AOSP. It's a very useful tool. Thank God for it, right? Or else we wouldn't have been able to proceed with our mission. We have learned about custom ROMs and what they're made on. So thanks to AOSP, custom ROMs exist. And thanks to custom ROMs, we unlock our bootloader, install a custom recovery, and sideload our ROM, whilst investigating the Android environment. So yeah, if you want to do that, do it on your device. Make sure that you take extra caution with the instructions. And I am very open to your questions. So thank you very much. If you do have any questions, please feel free to do so.